Episode 7, The Path to the Pokémon League. With 2 badges in Mew's hand, she, along with her Pokémon friends, Pikachu and Eevee, human friends Misty and Brock, continue on their journey. Mew turns to Misty and asks, "So Misty, you said that we're going to Vermilion City, right?" "That's right. It's got a luxury cruise ship, and I'm dying to see it," Misty happily says. "Sounds exciting, but I'm also hoping to get another gym to have another battle," Mew says. "I've heard that there's a really great gym in Vermilion," Brock says. "Really?" Mew asks. "Yeah, I heard that he's a tough trainer who specializes in electric types," Misty says. "Sounds good to me. That means my Pokemon and I could do some training," Mew says. "Best to be careful. There are a lot of tough trainers here," Misty says. "We will," Mew says. Sometime later, Mew and her friends have already come across a few trainers who want to battle. Mew accepts the challenge and is able to defeat them all with her Pokemon. Now, she is battling another trainer with a Rattata. She is battling with her Pidgeotto. Mew calls out, "Pidgeotto, finish it!" Pidgeotto then finishes the final attack on Rattata and knocks it out. "Oh, Rattata," the trainer says. Seeing his Pokemon defeated, Brock turns to Misty. "Talk about a winning streak." "Yeah, that's her 10th win," Misty replies. The trainer walks to Mew and says, "You're a really great Pokemon trainer." The two then shake hands for having a great battle. "Thanks. You're a good trainer yourself," Mew says. "Thanks. I bet you could even beat AJ," the trainer says. Mew says, confused. "Yeah, he lives over there." Jay trains savage Pokemon. He owns his own gym. He's never lost a single match, the trainer replies, then points towards the woods. Sounds interesting. I like to check it out," Mew says with glee. Soon, the gang arrives at AJ's gym. It has a big tent with a semicircle roof with yellow and pink stripes, and behind a wooden. It has a sign that reads, "AJ's Gym undefeated. Wins 98. Lose 0. Note, gym not sanctioned by Pokémon League." So this gym is not involved with the Pokémon League, Misty says. "Guess not. He must be a strong trainer to have 98 wins and no losses," Mew replies. Suddenly, a boy's voice sternly asks, "Are you my next victim?" The group turns their heads to see a boy that has spiky green, black and white shiny hair. He wears a black and red short, blue shorts, orange shoes, and is holding black backpack. I'm guessing you're AJ, the wild Pokemon trainer?" Mew asks. "Humph. That's my job, but beating chumps like you is my hobby. Ready to lose," AJ says. Just then, the gate to the gym opens to reveal the large tent, and in front of the tent is a battlefield. "Wow," Mew says, amazed. "Now this is not too shabby at all," Misty says. AJ then removes his backpack and places it on the ground. Then a Butterfree comes out and takes the backpack away. "What's in the backpack?" Mew asks. "The wild Pokemon that I just caught. There's a whole bunch more in the tent, and then some." AJ, interested, Mew asks, "Hey, can I see them after the match?" "If you want." "So, which Pokemon are you going to choose for my 99th win?" AJ answers with confidence. Ready to battle and confidence. "I like your style. My Pokemon and I are ready to battle," Mew says. "Like your guts, kid. But you're not playing in the Pokemon Little League anymore." He then cracks a whip close to Mew, causing her to jump in surprise. "After I win 100 matches, I'll start competing for badges," AJ says. "That means he's only 2 wins away," Brock says. "And he'll be extra psyched to win," Misty adds. "I can tell you're a tough trainer and skillful as well. I'm going to have fun battling you," Mew says. "Thinking the same way," AJ says, then throws his Pokeball. He then throws his Pokeball. Sandshrew, go. Coming out of the Pokeball is the ground-type mouse Pokemon, Sandshrew. A Sandshrew, huh? This one looks pretty tough, Mew says. Let's be careful now, Mew, Brock says. Remember, Sandshrews are ground-type, so Pikachu's electricity is no good against it, Misty says. Mew then says, don't worry, I have an idea on which Pokemon to use. Then throws her Pokeball. Go Poliwhirl. Then Poliwhirl comes out of the Pokeball. AJ cracks the whip again and says, Sandshrew, go. Sandshrew then begins the battle. Poliwhirl, use Water Gun, Mew calls out. Poliwhirl begins to use Water Gun. That's good thinking. Water Pokemon has the advantage, Brock says. Suddenly, Sandshrew rolls into a ball and spins around at the Water Gun, repealing the attack. Then, Sandshrew strikes at Poliwhirl really hard, then falls to the ground. Poliwhirl, Mew says, shocked. Finish it, AJ says. Uh-oh. Poliwhirl, return, Mew says, returning to its Pokeball. Then calls out, Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto enters the field. Mew calls out, okay, Pidgeotto, let's do this. That's what you think, kid. Now watch and weep, AJ says. Mew calls out, Pidgeotto, whirlwind. AJ cracks his whip and Sandshrew digs into the ground, surprising Mew and Pidgeotto. That Sandshrew is pretty well trained, Brock says. He controls it with the crack of his whip, like a Pokemon tamer. Misty says, suddenly, Sandshrew bursts out of the ground and rolls into a ball, then slams Pidgeotto to the ground. Then it's knocked out. Pidgeotto, Mew says, shocked. I guess that's the end of the battle, Brock says. That AJ is pretty strong, Misty replies. Mew simply smiles and brings out her Pokeball. Pidgeotto, return, then returns it to the Pokeball. Then, sis, that was a great battle. You did your best. While the match is over, Team Rocket is spying on them and sees how tough Sandshrew is. They're secretly hiding in the trees with binoculars. That Sandshrew is very tempting, Jessie says. We should grab it, James says. Looks fat. You two gotta carry it, Meowth says. The outfit that Trainer is wearing is positively hideous, Jessie says. Then James says, that shirt looks like it's from a century or two ago. He'd fit right in perfectly at a museum. At least he doesn't look like he's trick-or-treating like you do, Meowth says. James bonks Meowth on the head and sends him falling from the tree. Me, please, Meowth screams before he hits the ground. Then his binoculars land in his mouth. Back at the battlefield, the sign changes from 98 wins to 99 wins. Then AJ announces, and that makes victory number 99. That was a great battle, AJ. I'm surprised to see that Water Gun has no effect on Sandshrew, Mew says. Through rigorous training, AJ says. Mew and her friends are confused. Soon, everyone walks inside the tent and are surprised to see the gym is like a large fitness center. It has weights, large balls that some Rattata are rolling on. There's even ramps along with a pole with a flaming pole loop. There's even a pool with a high dive. What catches their attention is to see all of A. J's Pokemon are wearing a strange harvest on their body. What's more, a Beedrill and a Butterfree are battling, and the other Pokemon uses the equipment for training. This is your gym? Mew asks, shocked. It's huge, Misty says. The group turns their heads to see that J's Sandshrew is now wearing the same harness and is climbing the ladder on the dive board. What's Sandshrew doing? Mew asks. Sandshrew dives off the diving board and splashes in the water, then flies out of the water and spins itself dry, then stops once it's tried. Wow, I'm impressed, Misty replies. What's that thing it's wearing? Mew asks. It's a strength intensifier. AJ says. Who invented that thing? Brock asks. I did. It's my own secret weapon for unleashing a Pokemon's powers, AJ says. Then turns to Sandshrew. Sandshrew, back in the pool. Sandshrew then hurries to the diving board. Is it really okay to let it give it into the pool? Mew asks. Just watch, AJ says. Then calls out, Sandshrew, dive. Sandshrew then dives to the pool in a spectacular fashion. Nice dive, Misty says. Sandshrew comes out of the pool and spins into a ball, then stands on its 2 feet. Good work, AJ, it says. The water doesn't weaken your Sandshrew? Brock asks. You're looking at the only Sandshrew in the world strong enough to withstand water, AJ says. Then tells Sandshrew. Sandshrew, pick up your pacing. Sandshrew rolls into the ball and 3 Rattata are passing Sandshrew to one another. Wow, so that's why Water Gun didn't affect Sandshrew, Mew says. That's right, AJ says. Mew then asks, so then, why are you so tough on Sandshrew? I have to be tough, but I ask no more of Sandshrew than I do of myself. The very best, AJ says. But you aren't nearly as tough on any of your other Pokemon, Mew replies. AJ says, that's because Sandshrew is the very first Pokemon I ever caught. I will never forget that morning. We promised to do whatever it took to become the best Pokemon and trainer of all time. Nothing would stop us from reaching our dream, no matter how difficult our path. Enduring fierce storms and raging winds, we sacrificed everything to achieve our dream, and it was worth it. We're an unbeatable team. Guess we have our own way of training. I guess my idea of training is kind of different than what you're doing, Mew says, then turns to Brock. What do you think? Brock turns to AJ and says, your Pokemon are all in great shape. What kind of Pokemon food do you give them? My own recipe. Come on, I'll show you, AJ says. AJ opens a cabinet to reveal different jars of Pokemon food. Each one has a picture of a Pokemon. To get the results I want, I have to carefully monitor the Pokemon diets. Of course, the recipe is secret, AJ says. Of course. You know, I mix my own food too, Brock says. Mew turns her head to see Sandshrew lifting 2 dumbbells. Pikachu and Eevee are simply watching it work out, but the dumbbells are too strong for them. Meanwhile, Team Rocket is outside of the tent with another Pika napping attempt. Jessie turns to James. Insulated gloves. Check, James says, holding the pink rubber gloves. Big rubber ball? Jessie asks. Check, check, check-a-rooney, Meowth says, rolling the ball over. Team Rocket will do what it has to do, Jessie announces. Then James says, to snatch that little Pikachu, but also says, maybe we should go back to our old motto. This one doesn't feel right. Meowth hops on the ball and suggests, hey, how about a theme Meowth song? And I can even do a little dance solo. Everyone loves music. Meowth then begins to roll on the ball. As for Jessie and James, they have other opinions about Meowth's idea. A song's no good, Jessie says. A dance won't work, James adds. Meowth continues to roll on the ball, even doing a handstand on it. They soon turn to Meowth, who is purring and rubbing his face against his paw. Here's a line you'll like, Jessie says. And what's that? James asks. Then Jessie says, how about choreography killed the cat? Back in the gym, a timer counts down to 0. Then the bell rings loud. AJ shouts, okay, you wimps get a 15-minute break. Mew and the others look to see the Pokemon are panting and collapsed on the ground. Wow, they look beat. I think the training is intense, Mew says. You better believe it. In this gym, we live by the rules. No pain, no gain, AJ says. Guess everyone is different in their own way, Misty says. While the trainers have their conversion, Pikachu and Eevee tap on the strength intensifiers. Suddenly, they fly onto the two Pikachu and cause them to roll into a ball. Sandshrew simply laughs and does the same. Meanwhile, Team Rocket is rolling in a circle and is feeling dizzy. "I'm getting dizzy," Meowth panics. "Stop complaining. Look for Pikachu," James says. The reason why they're rolling is because they're inside of a red ball that has a hole on it. "Roll over there," Jessie days. They roll the ball over and see Sandshrew through the hole. "What's that?" James asks. "Could it be Pikachu?" Jessie asks. "Yeah, that's it. Now hurry, all that rolling made me nauseous," Meowth says. Team Rocket then snatches Sandshrew thinking it's Pikachu and puts it in a bag. "Got it," James says. Then they stand up with their feet out of the ball. "Let's go," Jessie says. They scurry out as Meowth says, "Hurry, I feel sick." The group hurries outside of the gym and the rubber ball falls off of them. "My leg fell asleep," Meowth says. "I wish your mouth would," James says. Team Rocket runs off into the distance, taking Shadow with them. Back in the gym, AJ and the others continue talking until the bell rings. AJ pulls out, "Time's up, back to work all of you." With that, the Pokemon begin to carry out their training. AJ looks around and asks, "Hey, where's Sandshrew?" Suddenly, AJ notices, "That's weird. What's your Pikachu and Eevee doing?" AJ walks to the Pikachu and Eevee to see them rolled up into a pair of balls. Mew hurries to her partner's side. "Pikachu, Eevee." Mew tries to pull them back to their normal shake, but to no avail. "They're stuck," Mew replies. "Here, give them to me," AJ says. AJ unbuckles the strength intensifier and both Pikachu and Eevee are back to their normal shapes. Pikachu turns to AJ and says, "Pikachu, thank you." "Eevee, thanks," Eevee says, shaking his head. AJ asks Mew's Pokemon, "Pikachu, Eevee, have you seen Sandshrew?" Number Pikachu answers, shaking his head. "Eevee, we haven't," Eevee answers. "You haven't?" AJ asks, worried, then calls out, "Sandshrew, where are you?" "Sandshrew has to be round here," Misty says. "Yeah, we saw it not long ago," Brock says. Mew turns to A. "Jay, don't worry, we'll find Sandshrew. It has to be here somewhere." While they search for Sandshrew, Team Rocket is in the woods and feeling tired. "Those clowns will never catch up with us," Jessie says. "I'm exhausted. You take the bag. Now," James says to Jessie. But Jessie says, "But a real gentleman always carries the bag." "Is that so? Well, as you know, I'm no gentleman," James angrily says, passing the bag to Jessie. Suddenly, Sandshrew bursts free from the ground and ends up getting its tail bit by Meowth. Sandshrew panics and digs into the ground. Back in A. Jay's gym, everyone has searched for Sandshrew, but are unable to find it. "We looked all over, but Sandshrew is gone," Brock says. "Maybe something happened to it," Misty says. "But what?" Mew replies, then realizes, what if Sandshrew has been abducted? "What? When I get my hands on whoever did it," AJ angrily says. "Calm down, I'm sure they haven't gotten far. We'll see if Sandshrew is outside or anyone suspicious," Brock says. Suddenly, the ground bursts open and Sandshrew flies out, with Meowth holding its tail with his mouth. Soon, Meowth falls out and Sandshrew lands in AJ's arms. AJ hugs his Pokemon with glee. Sandshrew, all of AJ's Pokemon gather and are glad to see Sandshrew is back. AJ and all his Pokemon sure are happy that Sandshrew is back, Misty says. Brock says, "AJ is tough, but I can see he cares deeply for his Pokemon. He really does care about Sandshrew a lot, and Sandshrew feels the same way about him," Mew happily says. They see Sandshrew licks AJ's cheek as he laughs with a smile on his face. Pikachu is pulling on Meowth's charm as Pikachu watches. Eevee taps Mew's leg. Eevee, Mew, look what Sandshrew brought. What is it? Mew asks, turning her head. Seeing the Pokemon, she says in shock, Meowth. So, then it must have been Team Rocket that kidnapped Sandshrew. Brock says. Mew calls out, Hey Meowth, wake up! Eevee then bites on Meowth's tail and wakes him up in a fright. Meowth looks around. Hey, where am I? What's going on here? Soon, Mew and her friends, along with AJ and his Pokemon, surround him. How do I get out of this mess? Meowth asks. Jessie, prepare for trouble. James, make that double. Meowth replies and turns his head. Everyone looks to see Team Rocket standing at the entrance. Team Rocket, Mew angrily says. Use the old motto, Meowth says. Jessie, to protect the world from devastation. James, to unite all peoples within our nation. Jessie and James, to denounce the evils of truth and love, to extend our reach to the stars above. Jessie, James. Jessie, Team Rocket, blast off at the speed of light. James, surrender now, or prepare to fight. Meowth, that's right. Soon Jessie and James shed tears. That felt great. We don't need a theme song, Jessie says. It's a classic, James says. AJ angrily asks, So these are the creeps who kidnapped my Sandshrew? Jessie wags her fingers. That was an unfortunate mix-up. We have no interest in your second-rate Sandshrew, James says. Second-rate, AJ angrily says. Jessie says, the only Pokemon we want is Pikachu. You can keep all those other wimps, James says. Wimps, are they? AJ angrily questions with a glare. That's it, Mew angrily says. But AJ stops Mew and says, I'll take care of this. No one insults my Pokemon and gets away with it. Let's step outside. Uh-oh, Mew replies, knowing Team Rocket is in trouble now. Everyone steps outside of the gym and is on the battlefield. AJ and Sandshrew on one side with Team Rocket on the other. AJ cracks his whip. Team Rocket has insulted my gym. Let's answer them with my 100th win. 100th? Mew asks. AJ turns to the group. That's right, as Sandshrew and I vowed. Mew smiles and says, good luck. Jessie holds out her Pokeball. Your small talk will cost you big time. Ekans, go. Your turn. Coughing. James says, doing the same. They throw their Pokeballs and Ekans and Coughing comes out. Sandshrew, go, AJ says. Coughing and Ekan drive to Team Rocket as they do the same. Sandshrew is able to dodge the attack. Jessie calls out, Ekans, bind it now. Ekans binds Sandshrew with its body, but Sandshrew pops out. That causes Ekan's body to be tied into a knot. Then Sandshrew kicks Ekans in the face. It's so strong, Mew says. Misty says, good work. Excellent, Brock says. Pikachu and Eevee cheer for Andrew, and AJ James then calls out, Coughing! Sludge attack! Coughing spits out sludge, but Sandshrew curls up into a ball and performs a spin. The sludge attack ends up with no effect. James says, Meowth, don't just stand there. Meowth gets into the battlefield and rolls Sandshrew like a ball. Stop pussyfooting around, Jessie demands. Just biting my time, Meowth says. Meowth bites down on Sandshrew, but his teeth break. Meowth screams, Ow! The moment of tooth! AJ cracks his whip and calls out, Finish it! Sandshrew, Fisher Strike. Sandshrew then jumps in the air and spreads its body. Everyone is shocked to see Sandshrew's attack. Then Sandshrew has his body head down and his finger at front. Then it sounds around like it's a drill. AJ calls out, "Go, Sandshrew, drill into the ground till it splits." Then Sandshrew lands directly on the ground in the center of the gym. Just then, the ground begins to crack and it splits open. Jesse and James move out. Meowth, Ekans, and Coughing fall into the crack. Mew and the others quickly move out of the way in shock. Soon, the moving ground comes to a stop. Meowth feels a lot of pain and climbs up the hole. Ooh. He then runs away as he screams, "That's it, I forfeit the match." Ekans and Coughing agree and hurry behind him. Jesse and James hurry after them. Jesse shouts, "Come back here!" "Meowth, where are you going?" James adds. Meowth screams, "To write us a theme song." "Not that again," Jesse and James say, annoyed. It's official that AJ and Sandshrew win the match. Mew and her friends cheer for them. "We did it, Sandshrew. We finally reached victory number 100. AJ cheers. Soon, the monitor at front changes to 100. Jay says in tears, "Today, all our sacrifices and hard work have finally paid off." Then hugs Sandshrew. "Now we can start winning our badges." After the victory, Mew and her friends are at front with AJ, about to say their farewells. "When I return here, I'm gonna be the number 1 Pokemon Master." AJ says, "Why don't you come along with us?" Mew asks. "Thanks, but Sandshrew and I have our own path that we must follow," AJ says. Mew and AJ shake their hands in respect. "Someday we'll meet again at the big Pokemon League competition," Mew says. "Okay, but next time you better be in shape, because I only want to beat expert trainers," AJ says. "It's a deal," Mew says. "So long," AJ says. Then he and Sandshrew begin on their journey. "He's tough, but pretty cool," Misty says. "Yeah, looks like you found another rival," Brock says. Mew calls out, "AJ, I won't lose to you next time." AJ and Sandshrew continue to walk off to their next journey. "I'll train hard to become a great Pokemon trainer, following my own path," Mew says with a smile. There are many different paths to the Pokemon League, and Mew is starting to discover her own. She learns that there will be many different challenges and different trainers to battle. One thing for sure, she and her friends will never forget the name of AJ's Gym. Episode 8, The School of Hard Knocks. Our story continues as Mew and her friends are now walking in a foggy area as they try to find Vermilion City. It's official. We're never going to find Vermilion City in this fog, Mew says. "Yeah, I'm also getting hungry," Misty says. Pikachu. "I'm hungry too," Pikachu says. Eevee sits down and says, Eevee, and I'm tired." Brock has set his backpack down and taken stuff out. "I think we all need a little break. Why don't I just throw a little something together?" He soon brings out a table and places a tablecloth on it, as well as plates, cuts, utensils, and a lot of stuff. There's nothing as satisfying as a cup of 100% cerulean coffee. You kids are too young for this stuff, but it's really quite good. "How about some prune juice?" Brock says, bringing out water. "I think I'll pass," Mew says. Then Misty suggests, "How about some herbal tea?" Do we have anything to make tea with?" Mew asks. Then Brock says, "Not so fast, everyone." Then brings out a tea set. "I brought my official Pokemon tea set." Now, of course, the key to good tea and coffee is good water, and I just happen to have a generous supply of sparkling, delicious Mount Moon pure spring water. He then takes the bottle out of his backpack, then says in a French accent, "And 4Z special snack." I have for you some French crepes. Misty gasps in excitement. I love French things. They're so romantic, aren't they? Then Brock says, by the way, I can't cook crepes and I can't boil water if I don't have a fire. One of you is going to have to go into the forest and bring back some firewood. Okay, I'll stay here while you and Misty start getting everything ready, Mew says. Sounds good to me, Misty happily says. Sometime later, Mew, Pikachu, and Eevee are walking around in the woods as they try to find any firewood for them to use. Luckily, they already find some food for them to use. I think we need to collect a little more firewood and then we can head back, Mew says. Pika Pie. Sounds good, Pikachu says. Eevee. Okay, Eevee replies. Suddenly, Pikachu noticed something. Pika Pie. Pikachu. Mew. Look up ahead. Mew and Eevee look ahead to notice a big ball of light. What's that? Mew wonders. Three then decide to walk over to see what it is. When they walk closer, they see a young boy that is running on a running machine. He looks a bit tired. He is also being surrounded by a group of boys, and each is holding a candle. All the boys, including the one on the machine, are wearing the same uniform. Alright, what's the name of this one? One boy asks, holding a card. The boy on the machine answers, Is it a Zubat? Listen, just because it's foggy out here doesn't mean your brain has to be in a fog, one of the boys says. The boy on the machine says, It's a Pidgey. Nice guess, you just got lucky, a boy holding a candle says. Another boy asks, Okay, now tell us what its special attack is. Pidgey's attack is Gust. At level 5, Sand attack. At level 12, the boy on the machine says. Everybody knows that. Now, can you just tell me at what level Pidgey evolves? And what's the name of Pidgey's advanced stage? The boy with the candle says. The boy on the machine tries to think. Another boy sternly says, You better come up with answers quickly, or you'll have to run faster. The boy who is running stops and feels very tired. He groans in pain and says, I'm sorry, I forgot. The boys around him sigh. You forgot, one of the boys says. He scoffs and says, And you call yourself a Pokémon Tech student? Well, we don't want to study with the likes of you. I'm sorry, the tired boy replies. Seeing the young boy being bullied, Mew sternly walks over and angrily says, Hey, you! You better leave that kid alone! The group of boys turn to see Mew and her Pokémon walking over to them. What's going on here? Mew angrily asks. There's nothing going on here. Mind your own business. This is a private training session, the boy, holding the card, says. Then a boy with green hair says, There's no room at our Pokémon school for losers who don't even know Pidgey's evolve stage. We have to maintain standards. Mew puts the firewood down and helps the boy up. I don't know about this school of yours, but if it's turning out students like you, I'd say that the standards are pretty low. That's right, Mew, you tell them, Misty says, arriving at the scene. Misty? I thought you were at the campsite waiting with Brock, Mew says, surprised. I was, but I soon heard all the shouting and came to see what was up. Now as for you boys, you better stop bullying that kid or you'll have to answer to us, right, Mew? Misty says. Mew smiles. Right, then turns to the boys. Now listen, leave that boy alone or you'll have to deal with me and my friends. We don't fight, the spiky-haired boy says. Then the green-haired boy says, Fighting is for cavemen. This isn't the Stone Age, you know. And if we wasted our time having a fight with a couple of little insects like you, it'd just make Pokémon Tech look really bad, the boy with the long hair says. The green-haired boy walks up to them. We'll see you back at the Tech, Joe. Okay, the boy, Joe sadly says. Then the boys leave the scene. Mew asks, Who are those creeps anyway? So those are the infamous Tech students? Brock replies, stirring the crepes in a bowl with a whisk. Tech students, Mew says, confused. Pokémon Tech. I think it's short for Pokémon Technical. Yeah, it's a school for Pokémon trainers. I know I have a flyer here somewhere, Misty says, and reaches in her pocket. Then take it out. Here it is. A Pokémon school in the middle of nowhere? Mew says, confused. Then turns to see her Pokémon looking at the machine. Careful, you two. That machine isn't safe, Mew says. The Pokémon nod their heads in reply. Brock takes the flyer and reads it. Pokémon Technical Institute, a boarding school for serious Pokémon trainer preparation. All students are guaranteed to enter Pokémon League upon graduation. Pokémon Technical is the educational facility for exceptional students who want to be Pokémon trainers in a very short time, without having to travel on difficult badge collecting journeys. And finishes reading, oh, so that's the story. Getting into the Pokémon League without badges is too easy. It also doesn't sound fun, Mew says. Then Brock says, wait, there's more. Student entrance fees and tuition are in keeping with the high standards set by Pokémon Technical. You know what that means, don't you? It's one of those snobby private schools that only millionaires' kids go to, Misty says. I think it sounds like a bunch of phooey. Where is this school anyway? Mew replies. The boy Joe points out. It's right over there. The fog clears to reveal a large school, and it's as clear as day. Just then, the P. A announcer on the speaker, today's special class, Fog Battle Techniques, is now ending. Tomorrow's lesson will be Snow Competition Secrets. Oh well, I guess tomorrow they'll make me into a snowman again. Joe sadly says, do they treat you like that all the time? Mew asks. My friends are just trying to help me, Joe answers. Mew arches her eyebrow. You call them friends? With friends like that, who needs enemies? Brock comments. Joe then says, but they helped me learn that Pidgey evolves into Pidgeotto at level 18. It learns Whirlwind at level 21, Wing Attack at level 31, and then as its level rises, it learns various tricks. After evolving to Pidgeot, it can fly at 1200 meters at speeds of up to Mach 2. Confused, Mew asks. I don't get it. If you know everything about Pidgey, why didn't you just answer them before? Sometimes I make believe that I don't know all the answers, because if I do, they make the questions that much harder. But I have to stay here at Pokémon Tech. My mother and father worked hard and saved money so they could pay to send me to school here, Joe says. He then turns his head. You see that guy over there? The group turns their heads to see a man reading under a tree. That guy? What about him? Misty asks. He's an upper classmate, but the classes are so hard here. Some students are held back for many years. Everyone's too ashamed to go home without getting a diploma. That guy, he's in the beginner's class with me, Joe says. You're a beginner? Mew asks. Joe says, a beginner has the same qualifications as someone with 2 badges. The intermediate class has the qualifications of 4, and the advanced students have the same as 6. If you graduate, you can enter the Pokémon League without traveling around to collect the badges. That guy is a beginner, but he's so much older than everybody in the class, the kids don't bother to help him like they help me. What do the teachers say about that kind of help? Misty asks. They don't even know about it, or if they do, they pretend not to, Joe answers. Mew angrily says, well, I for one think that this is a violation of students' rights that must stop immediately, if not sooner. I want to meet the student in charge of this system and I'll see that it's stopped. Joe then holds out a photo. Here's a picture. The group looks at the photo to see a light-skinned girl with long brown hair. Her name is Giselle. Huh? It's a girl? Misty says, confused. Brock blushes as he says, oh, yeah, you're right about that. she can violate my rights. Misty then asks, looking confused, "Hey, if she's making your life so miserable, how come you're carrying her picture around?" "I hate the way she treats us, but I like the way she looks," Joe says. "Maybe so, but she's not very nice if she makes the system like that. I think it's time we talk to this Giselle," Mew says. "I agree," Misty says. The group then begins to head to the school. Unknown to them, they are being spied on by Team Rocket. "That place brings back memories, James," Jessie says. "It certainly does, Jessie, and all of them are awful," James replies. Then Meowth says, "Tell me your tale of failure again." "We studied for the big test," Jessie says. Then James says, "Sure, we would beat all the rest. And here's the part I like the best," Meowth replies. Then Jessie says, "We frolicked that night, for our future seemed bright. But things weren't right," James replies. Then they both say in tears, "We got the lowest scores in the history of the school." Meowth speaks up, "You should look on the bright side." "What's the bright side?" Jessie and James ask. "At least you guys were the top of the bottom," Meowth answers. Then they both hug him and give him compliments. Meowth says in thought, "These two are worse off than I thought. I liked it better when they were nasty." Meanwhile, Joe escorts the group of friends inside a room full of computers. Giselle always practices here by herself. Even if you beat her in a fight, it won't matter to her. At the tech, it's your skill as a Pokémon trainer that counts more than winning in any one battle, Joe says. "I think I prefer to have the badges I have now," Mew says. "How many do you have?" Joe asks. "Only 2, Mew answers. "But Giselle is the top beginner here at Tech. That's better than even having 3 badges. Even though I'm at the bottom of my class, I'm still more powerful than someone with 2 badges," Joe says. "I wouldn't push your luck too much, especially with Brock and Misty here," Mew says. "Why's that?" Joe asks. Brock was the gym leader of the Pewter Gym, and Misty, along with her sisters, are gym leaders of the Cerulean Gym. "Trust me, they're pretty tough to beat," Mew says. "Oh, Cerulean City, water Pokémon," Joe says, getting on a computer. "How'd you know?" Misty asks. "I always beat them on the simulator." "See?" Joe says. The group looks at the screen to see a Starmie on one side and a Weepinbell on the other. Joe plays Weepinbell and wins the game in seconds. The 3 blink in reply. Annoyed, "What is this? A simulation's one thing, but this is real life." Then brings out her Pokeball. "Let's battle." "You'll be sorry," Joe says, sounding confident. While Misty and Joe are on the battlefield, Team Rocket climbs on the tree and spies on them. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Mew asks. "I'm sure, Mew. I have the Cerulean City Gym's reputation to defend, and I'm gonna defend it," Misty says. Then throwing her Pokeball. Misty calls Starmie. "Too bad your water Pokemon won't be able to defeat my plant." "Alright, Weepinbell, let's go," Joe says, and throws a Pokeball. Weepinbell comes out of it. Mew holds out her Pokedex and Dexter says, "Weepinbell, the flycatcher Pokemon, and the evolved form of Bellsprout, a grass and poison type. Weepinbell often uses its body to camouflage itself in the forest in order to lure and trap prey by spraying it with poison powder to immobilize it before melting it with internal acids." "I'll teach him about Pokemon. Starmie, go," Misty calls out. Starmie then sprays Weepinbell and is able to knock it out in a second. Shocked, Joe wonders. "Huh? Oh, but Weepinbell is strong against water Pokemon." Suddenly, someone steps into the room. "True, but there's one thing the ref said that you didn't know. Your opponent's from the Cerulean City Gym and a former gym leader. Her Pokemon has had much more experience battling. You should have known that. You're an embarrassment to the whole school." They look to see the girl from Joe's photo and the boys they have met in the woods. But Giselle, Joe says. So that's Giselle? Mew replies. She's really pretty, isn't she? She looks just like a movie star, Brock says, blushing. Mew looks at Brock dumbfounded while Misty is irritated. Misty says in her thought, he likes stars, does. I'll be glad to show him some stars. Suddenly the girl says, I'm the top student in the beginning class of the most exclusive prep school in the world, Pokémon Tech. It's sad that others aren't blessed with my beauty, my talents, my humble attitude. People call me a star, but I'm just Giselle. Outside, Jessie turns to James. I think she's more conceited than we are. Yes, but she's awfully cute, isn't she? James replies. Then Meowth jumps in. Not as cute as Meowth. The next moment, Jessie and James punch Meowth and send him flying. You're in the way, Jessie angrily says. James angrily adds, stop bothering us. Meowth is being sent so high up that the star twinkles to where he flies. The next thing Giselle says really upset them. I want to continue to help my classmates be the very best they can be, to teach each other, respect each other, and ensure the Pokémon of tomorrow. But you're a weakling, Joe gasps in shock. You'd better get stronger fast, or before you know it, your fellow students will turn their backs on you. For good, Giselle says with a huff and about to walk away. With that, Mew decides to step in and says in furry, not so fast. A true friend wouldn't walk away from someone who needs help. You may look beautiful, but you remind me of an old saying of how beauty is only skin deep. Jealousy is not very pretty either, is it? Giselle says. Why would I be jealous of someone who acts like an arrogant boaster? Mew says, crossing her arms. A boaster? Giselle questions with a firm expression. Yeah, getting to the Pokémon League without earning them through gym battles against gym leaders and traveling and learning about where you go is just boring. Second, you don't really gain real experience by just staying in one place and where Pokémon are simulated or just pre-trained and all that. Mew says, actually, Pokémon are only as strong as the trainer that raises them. A Pokémon that's weaker but better trained can still win. It depends on the trainer, Giselle says, then turns to Joe. I hope you're learning something from this, Joe. A Pokémon's level of training is just as important to factor as a Pokémon's type when deciding a match. A first-class Pokémon trainer can calculate that. Calculate? There's more to Pokémon than simply calculating. Mew says, you seem so sure. If you don't mind me asking, what's your name and how many badges do you have? Giselle says, my name is Mew from Pallet Town. As of now, I have 2 badges. Mew says, in other words, you're a beginner. And how long have you two been trying to become a Pokémon trainer? Giselle says. Mew says, just about 2 months. Giselle gasps, 2 whole months and you let one of your Pokémon walk free? You haven't even been able to tame it yet? Beg your pardon? Mew says, confused. Maybe your Pokémon are taming you, Giselle says. This makes Mew irritated. I don't want to tame Pikachu or Eevee. They're my friends and so are my other Pokémon. How many Pokémon do you have? Giselle asks. 8 and 2 Pokémon eggs, Mew says. Interesting. You have 8 Pokémon and 2 eggs, Giselle says. Why does it matter? All my Pokémon are strong in their own way, Mew says. Giselle says, I wonder, with 2 months of Pokémon experience, your Pikachu for yours should be at least at level 25, but it's probably not there yet, is it? The same can go for that Eevee. It should have evolved at this point, but probably isn't there yet. This makes Pikachu and Eevee irritated. Then Giselle says, I suppose you didn't know much about Pokémon if you picked a Pikachu as your first one. Pikachu tend to be hard to handle. It says so in any beginning Pokémon manual. She gasps and says, you really didn't know, and you still got 2 badges? How funny. Then says, a Pikachu, evolves into an electric Pokemon called Raichu. It gets to be about 2 feet, 7 inches tall. Pikachu can shock you, but otherwise it's pretty cute, don't you think? And that also goes for Eevee. It should have evolved to Flareon, Jolteon, or Vaporeon at this time. So if you don't let them evolve, they make great pets, especially for little girls. But I'm sure you knew that, didn't you? Really? You didn't? And you have 2 badges? Mew sternly says, I wouldn't talk like that if I were you. Oh, and why is that? Giselle asks. Because it's never smart to insult Pokemon's pride, especially those with stronger abilities. Besides, you shouldn't act so confident that you can battle well. My papa told me once that no matter where you go in the world, there will always be someone stronger than you, Mew says. You tell them, Mew, Misty says. Mew then turns to her Pokemon. Ready to battle, guys? Pika, you got it, Pikachu says. Eevee, let's teach her a lesson, Eevee says, determined. Mew then brings out her Metapod and says, Okay, Metapod, you can watch the match. Metapod, okay, Metapod says. For your Pikachu and Eevee, this should be more than a match, Giselle. Then throws her Pokeball. Cubone, Mankey go. Soon Cubone and Shelder come out of the Pokeball. Cubone is a bipedal, dinosaur-like Pokemon with a light brown hide that covers most of its body, except for its cream-colored belly. 2 small claws, 1 on each hand, serve as its thumbs, and 1 large nail on each foot make up its toes. It has 2 small spikes on its back and a short tail, black eyes, and a small area surrounding them. The skull has 2 rounded horns on the top of its head and a tooth-like point on the lower sides, and a brown snout. Mew brings out her Pokedex to look up Cubone. Cubone, the lonely Pokemonday. A ground type. This Pokemon always wears the skull of its deceased mother on its head and never shows its real face. Its lonely, sad and mournful cries echo inside the tear-stained skull as it rattles hollowly. It is said to cry when it thinks of its dearly departed mother. Then turns to Mankey. Mankey, the pig monkey Pokemon, a fighting type. Mankey is quick-tempered and can fly into a rage even while dreaming. Ready, guys? Let's show them what we have that their school doesn't, Mew says. Pikachu and Eevee nod their heads. Giselle then calls out, Cubone, Bone Club, now. Cubone then charges and performs the Club Bone attack. Pikachu, dodge, Mew says, and Pikachu dodges. Mankey, use Fury Swipe, Giselle says. Mankey then attacks Eevee with Furry Swipe. Giselle then calls out, Cubone, it's time for the boomerang, now. Cubone then throws the boomerang at Pikachu. Then Giselle calls out, Cubone, Mankey, use your attacks 1 more time. Cubone and Mankey then perform the same attacks on Pikachu and Eevee and are knocked down. Are you both okay? Mew asks, concerned. Pikachu and Eevee struggle to stand up and are able to stand on their feet. Hang in there, guys. I think I have an idea on how we can beat them. Let's give it our best shot, Mew says. Pikachu and Eevee nod their heads in reply. What's the point of trying? It seems that you're going to lose, so why not give up? Giselle questions. Because my Pokemoner and I are strong. You're the one who doesn't seem to know a thing about what Pokemon is truly about, Mew says. Giselle and the boys soon become confused. The truth is, this school does seem to have interesting learning skills, but it seems that it can only take you so far and only teach those basics. That's why you and your Pokemon need to train hard together. In fact, you and your Pokemon can push even further, and you can learn more than what you've been taught in the school. I know that because I've seen what Pokemon can really do, and that isn't something you can just learn in school. Pokemon is actually a lot more, and that's why we need to learn from them. We teach them, and they teach us, Mew says. Well, see about that, Cubone, Bone Range. Mankey, Use furry swipe, Giselle says. Cubone then throws Boomerang, but Pikachu jumps over it and grabs its mask and moves it behind. Soon, Cubone is unable to see. Eevee then dodges the attack by jumping over it and whacks it with its tail. Pikachu, you know what to do, Mew says. Pikachu then bites Cubone on the tail, then scratches Mankey. After that, it kicks Cubone, spinning its mask around back in front. Then Pikachu strikes Mankey with its tail to the same area Cubone is. Mew turns to Eevee. Alright, Eevee. Time to wrap this up. Eevee, you got it, Eevee says, and it has Cubone's bone in its mouth. Then Eevee tosses it in the air. Now, use Iron Tail on the bone, Mew says. Eevee jumps up and uses Iron Tail to swat the bone before Mankey and Cubone can do anything. The bone strikes at both of them, knocking them to the ground, and soon knocked out. Cubone, Mankey, Giselle says, disbelief. We did it, Mew happily says. Both she and her Pokémon cheer with victory. Giselle then slumps to the ground defeated. I lost. Then calls back her Pokémon Cubone. Good try. Mankey, come on back. You'll be okay now, Giselle says, looking at her Pokeballs. Then turns to Mew. None of the textbooks ever mention a Pikachu winning by anything other than electricity. Not to mention an Eevee knows a Steel-type attack. That was a once-in-a-lifetime battle, Joe says. And don't try to copy it. That's just Mew's special way of doing things, Misty says. It was a cool way, Joe says. Unknown to them, Jessie and James are spying on them. Jessie turns to James. There's another way to win that's not in the textbooks too. Isn't there, James? Let's show 'em, James says. Still devastated, Giselle says. I can't believe I lost a match. Suddenly, smoke and fog begins to surround the area. Oh no, it's not, Mew says. Just then, James and Jessie appear from the fog. Jessie and James, allow us to reintroduce ourselves. Jessie, to protect the world from devastation. James, to unite all peoples within our nation. Jessie, to denounce the evils of truth and love. To extend our reach to the stars above. Jessie, Jessie, James, James, Jessie. Team Rocket, blast off at the speed of light. James, surrender now, or prepare to fight. Meowth, Meowth. Then falls down from the sky and dives into the pool. He then comes out and lands on his feet. I love a splashy entrance. I've heard of Team Rocket. You're the ones who got the worst grades ever on the entrance exams, Giselle says, then holds out her Pokeball. How about your team versus our team? Soon, Mew, Misty, Brock, Joe, and the boys hold out their Pokeballs. That makes Team Rocket frightened. The two of us against all of them? Jessie exclaims. But the rules say 1-on-1, James panics. Bad guys don't play by the rules, Giselle and Mew say. Then they both throw their Pokeballs as Giselle calls out, Get 'em. Soon everyone throws their Pokeballs at them at once and Team Rocket is getting hurt by them and they have to retreat. Too many Pokeballs. Jessie panics. From now on, we play by the rules. James panics. Meowth screams. At least for a little while. Team Rocket screams. Looks like Team Rocket's blasting off again. Later in the evening at sunset, Giselle is sitting by the pool. She then says, There are some things you just can't learn in school, and that's a good lesson. Joe then walks to Giselle. I'm going back home to start from scratch with my first Pokemon, just like Mew did. Then turns to Giselle. Hey, Giselle, maybe we'll meet someday in the Pokemon League. I hope so. I'll try my hardest to be a worthy opponent if we do, Giselle says. Alright, if I keep your picture with me? Joe asks. Giselle nods her head. Sure, I have pictures of my friends too. Huh? Do you have mine? Joe says, confused. We're friends now, aren't we? Giselle says, and stands up. She then presents her hand. Good luck, Joe. You too, Giselle, Joe says, doing the same. They both shake hands and wish them luck. Mew and the others see and are glad to see that Joe and Giselle are now true friends. Giselle walks to Mew and says, "So, maybe we'll battle again someday." "I sure hope so," Misty says. "Me too," Mew says, then turns to Metapod. "What do you think, Metapod?" Suddenly, Metapod begins to glow, surprising everyone. "What's happening?" Misty asks. "It's evolving," Giselle says. Metapod changes its shape, and it's beginning to sprout wings. Metapod is now a vaguely anthropomorphic butterfly with a purple body. The upper pair of light blue legs resembles small, three-fingered hands, while the lower pair resembles long, digitless feet, two black antennae, a light blue snout with two fangs underneath, and large, red compound eyes. Its two pairs of wings are white with black venation. "Free, free," the Pokémon says. "It's a Butterfree," Brock says. "Butterfree," Mew says. Butterfree then lands on Mew's head. Mew then brings out her Pokédex and Dexter says, "Butterfree, the butterfly Pokémon and the final evolved form of Caterpie, a bug and flying type. The scales covering its wings help it to shed water." Mew smiles and says, "Well, Butterfree, it looks like your time to evolve happens to be now." The group then smiles to see that Metapod is now a Butterfree. Soon, Mew and the others leave Pokémon Tech, where they end up learning a few things, but also teach as well. Episode 9, Bulbasaur and the Hidden Village. Mew and her friends are continuing to travel through the forest to get to Vermilion City for Mew's next gym battle. Of course, having to rely on instinct is not always easy, and can sometimes lead to trouble. Misty sighs. "Phew, I'm getting a little tired. Yeah, we've been walking down this forest for a while now. So much for taking a shortcut," Mew says. "Yeah, but this was your idea to go through the forest. I know you're used to it since you lived in one, but we've been walking for hours," Misty says. "We're not exactly forest experts," Brock says. "Okay, I say let's take a break and have some lunch," Mew says. "Pika, sounds good to me," Pikachu says. "Eevee, let's eat," Eevee replies. The group soon sits on some stumps and small boulders to have a lunch break. As they eat, Mew turns her head to see a Pokémon drinking some water from a small pond. The Pokémon is a small blue Pokémon with 5 leaves on its head and only has feet, eyes, and a mouth. "Look, it's an Oddish," Mew says. She takes out her Pokédex and Dexter says, "Oddish, the weed Pokémon, a grass and poison type. This Pokémon is typically found roaming the forest, scattering pollen as it walks around." Misty suddenly holds out her Pokéball. "Well then, I'm gonna catch that Pokémon." "You are? How come?" Mew asks. "We found it around the water, and water is my specialty," Misty answers. The girls then turn their heads to see Oddish running away, then throws her Pokéball. "Go, Starmie." Starmie then comes out of the Pokéball and lands in front of Oddish before it could escape. Misty then calls out, "Water gun, now!" Starmie sprays Oddish and is sent flying. "Now that's the way to spray. Tackle it, Starmie," Misty calls out. Starmie's attack lands on Oddish and is knocked out while it's upside down. "That weakened it. Gotta catch it now. Pokeball, go," Misty says and throws her Pokeball to catch it. Suddenly, something whacks her Pokeball away. Misty says in shock, "Uh-oh." They soon see a Pokemon in front of Oddish with anger. It's a small, quadruped Pokemon that has blue-green skin with darker patches. It has red eyes with white pupils, pointed, ear-like structures on top of its head, and a short, blunt snout with a wide mouth. A pair of small, pointed teeth are visible in the upper jaw when its mouth is open. Each of its thick legs ends with 3 sharp claws. On its back is a green plant bulb. Whoa, what's that? Brock says, surprised. Isn't that a Bulbasaur? Mew says. She brings out her Pokédex and Dexter says, Bulbasaur the seed Pokémon, a grass and poison type. It bears the seed of a plant on its back from birth. The seed slowly develops. Researchers are unsure whether to classify Bulbasaur as a plant or animal. Bulbasaur are extremely tough and are very difficult to capture in the wild. Bulbasaur then uses Tackle Attack on Starmie and it's a direct hit. Misty catches Starmie and asks in concern, Oh, Starmie, are you okay? I don't think that Bulbasaur is going to let us get that Oddish that easily, Mew says. Why'd you say that? Misty asks. Look, Mew says, pointing to the Pokemon. Bulbasaur is very protective of Oddish. I think you're right. We better get going, Brock says. Okay. Come on, Misty, Mew says. Okay, Misty says, and calls back Starmie. Then the group leave the area. Bulbasaur and Oddish decide to take the chance and leave the scene. Sometime later, Mew and her friends are walking over the bridge. Thanks for getting us out of that jam, Mew, Misty says. It's no trouble. Still, I have to wonder where we are, Mew says. Brock looks at the map and says, I can't find this bridge on my map. Suddenly, the wind begins to blow, rocking the bridge. Just then, the bridge's rope snaps and falls to the side with Mew and the others hanging for dear life. Unable to hold on any longer, Brock falls off the bridge and into the river. Brock! Mew exclaims. Misty panics. Mew, you have to pull us back up. It's our only chance. Pika Pie. Hurry, Mew. Pikachu panics. Eevee. Hurry, Eevee panics. Mew says, hang on guys. Soon enough, the girls and Pokemon are able to get out of the situation and to the other side of the cliff. Mew sighs in relief. Phew, I'm totally wiped out. We can't rest now. We've got to find Brock, Misty says. You're right. We got to find him, Mew says. Eevee, poor Brock, Eevee says. The group then hurries down the path at the side of the river. Suddenly, Misty falls and lets out a scream. Mew turns her head to see Misty down in the hole. Misty, are you okay? Mew asks. I think so. What's a trap doing here? Misty answers. It seems pretty strange, Mew says. Misty calls out. Just help me out. Quick, this is just not our day, Mew replies. After helping Misty out of the hole, the group continue to walk through the forest to find Brock and hope he's okay. Mew calls out, Brock? Hey, Brock. Do you think he washed this far downstream? Misty wonders. As the group walks down the path, something catches on Misty's foot. The next thing they know, a net springs up from under them, and now they're all caught in a bet hanging in a tree. Hey, how'd we get up in a tree? Mew panics. Misty shouts, It's another trap. Do something. What can I do? Mew asks. Try wiggling. See if the net will open. Misty answers. The four then try to wiggle their way out of the net, but it's no use. This isn't going to work, Mew says. We gotta do something, Misty says. Suddenly, they hear a familiar sound. Bulbasaur. The group looks down to see a familiar Pokemon. Bulbasaur, Mew says, confused. Sarsaur, Bulbasaur says with a smile, and walks away. Mew turns to Misty. I guess it's not going to help us. Meanwhile, Team Rocket is hiding on the cliff with bushes on them. Jessie says, the village we're looking for should be on the other side of that bridge. Let's just hope the rumors are true, James replies. Meowth crawls over. Hee hee hee. Just wait and see what Team Rocket's got planned for you, you delicious little village. Back to Mew and the others who are still trapped in the net. Gee, I wonder what happened to Brock. Mew replies, concern. I wonder too, Misty says, worried. I just hope Brock isn't trapped like we are. Suddenly, they hear a familiar voice. Ahoy! The group looks down and to surprise they see, Hey Brock, Mew says, relieved to see a familiar face. Why are you hanging around in that tree? Brock asks. Brock cuts the rope and the group drops to the ground. Thanks, but maybe next time you can let us down a little more gently, Misty says. Yeah, sure. Sorry, Brock apologizes. We've been looking all over for you, Misty says, worried. We saw you fall in the river. Then what happened? Mew frantically asks. Well, I was being washed away in the rapids, Brock says. Flashback. Brock is being washed away in the river until someone grabs hold of his hand. A girl's voice appears. I got you. Just hold on. The girl then pulls Brock out of the river. After taking a few breaths, Brock looks up to see the one who has saved him is a girl. The girl has blue braided hair, wears a pink shirt, red overalls, red headband, and a green ribbon. The girl who saved my life was incredibly beautiful, Brock says. Beautiful girl, huh? Mew recipes. Flashback ends. Brock then leads the group, and they arrive at a clearing that has a lake and a logged cabin. The girl turns to see them. Oh, Melanie, this is Mew and Misty, Brock says. Hello, the girls reply. So you're Brock's friends. He told me all about you, the girl, Melanie, says. Great, Misty says. Then, Misty notices something amazing. Wow, look at that. They look to see many different Pokémon eating, Misty asks. Do all these Pokémon belong to you? Oh, no, Melanie answers. This is a place where Pokémon can rest and relax, Brock says. And pets are paras. You mean like summer camp? Mew asks. Well, sort of, but all year long. You see, when Pokémon get abandoned or injured, they can come here. Melanie takes care of them until they feel better, then they leave, Brock says. So, this is a Pokémon Center, and Melanie is a Pokémon doctor, Misty replies. Melanie smiles and says, Oh, no, I'm unqualified to be a Pokémon doctor. This is more like a Pokémon health spa, Brock says. Then Melanie says, Here, the Pokémon don't battle with one another. They relax and try to enjoy themselves until they've recovered. Cool, Misty says. Melanie collects plants to use for medicine. She knows all about which plants can help a Pokémon feel better or grow stronger when it's too weak. Brock adds, So you and Melanie both love to take care of Pokémon, Mew says. We do, Brock says with a smile, and looks at Melanie. Well, it looks to me like there's something else Brock might love, Misty teases. Brock's face turns red and covers Misty's mouth. Be quiet, she'll hear you. Mew begins to wonder. I wonder who put those nets and that snare trap up in the trees. Probably the same person who dug the hole I fell into, Misty says. Melanie then answers, I'm sorry. I was the one who set those traps. I wanted to catch Pokémon trainers before they reached the village. Since you got caught, I guess they really work. But why? Misty asks. There are so many injured Pokémon here. I have to protect them, Melanie answers. Soon, Mew realizes, so the bridge was a trap too. Yes, Melanie answers. Meanwhile, Team Rocket is carefully crossing the bridge from the only stable side. Jessie says, Across this bridge lies a lifetime supply of Pokémon. How are we ever gonna carry them all? James asks. Meowth walks on all fours and says, Don't worry, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Suddenly, the ridge breaks and Team Rocket screams as the bridge slams the wall. Then they all fall into the river. Back at the village, the group walk around to see the Pokémon living here. I promised Melanie we wouldn't capture any Pokémon here, Brock says. And did you seal the promise with a kiss? Misty teases. Then Brock hits Misty on her head, making her scream. Ow. So that must mean you really do love her, Misty says, and received another hit from Brock. Don't worry, we promise to catch any Pokemon, Mew says. Then Misty says, only bad guys try to capture sick Pokemon. I just hope the traps can keep anyone away. I can only think of one group of villains who would want to capture Pokemon no matter what. Mew says, you mean Team Rocket, right? Mew asks. Exactly, Mew says. Meanwhile, Team Rocket falls into a hole with a big crash. In the hole, Jessie screams in anger. This is the third hole we've fallen into. How come nobody ever falls into our traps? We always fall into theirs. Well, this one was cleverly hidden, well made, and James says. Jessie then scolds James. I'm glad you're enjoying it so much. Meowth, Meowth screams. After climbing out of the home, Team Rocket continues on their way until they are caught by a net and pull into the tree. James shouts, get us out of here. Meowth screams. Ow. My tail. Let go. Stop pulling my tail. Back in the village, Mew and the others decide to help Melanie take care of the sick Pokemon. Brock pours some water from the lake onto Staryu. Staryu shakes the water and feels refreshed. Do you feel any better yet, Staryu? Brock asks. Mew is feeding some of the Pokemon with the Pokemon food she made. They all like it. She is also brushing a female Nidoran's fur. Misty also meets up with the Oddish she has met before. Sorry about what happened in the forest, Misty says. Oddish? It's alright, Oddish says. I shouldn't have surprised you like that. You must have been scared, Misty says. Oddish, I was, Oddish. Oddish replies. Melanie told me your old trainer got rid of you. Was it really because he thought you were too weak? Misty asks. Oddish nods its head. Odd. Yes. You know, some trainers can be insensitive, but not all of us are mean like that, Misty says. She giggles and pets Oddish on the head. Misty then says, you just need to find a trainer that understands you. Anyway, I'm sorry for what I did and I hope we can become friends. She then sheds a little tears. Oddie, Oddish replies and wipes Misty's tears, then says, Oddish, Oddish, friends, please don't cry. You're sweet, Oddish. I am sorry. All I think about lately is winning. I hope I'm not becoming heartless, Misty says. Hearing the conversation, Mew says, not at all. You're very sweet. You're like a Goldeen when it comes to kindness and beauty. And yet, you all have the strength and willpower like Gyarados. Misty chuckles. I'll take that as a compliment, but not sure about the Gyarados comment. Suddenly, Bulbasaur comes in and tackles Misty to the ground. Misty turns to see the Pokemon and angrily says, Hey, it's rude to tackle people. She's right, Mew says, with Nidoran in her arms. Nidoran answers, Nido. I have to agree. Bulbasaur growls and scratches dirt on the ground. Misty turns to Mew. You know what Bulbasaur is saying? Bulbasaur is telling us to leave, or else he'll throw us out, Mew says. Hey, you can't just throw us out, Misty angrily says to Bulbasaur. Mew says, calm down, Misty. Maybe Bulbasaur is worried that you might try to catch Oddish again. Melanie walks over and says, I think you're right. Bulbasaur is only trying to protect Oddish. Bulbasaur volunteered to guard our whole village. This becomes a surprise for everyone, Melanie then explains. It protects all the injured Pokemon whenever enemies try to attack them. Bulbasaur is the bravest and most loyal Pokemon I know. So that's why Bulbasaur attacked me. It must have thought I was taking Oddish away from the village, Misty says. Then Mew says, Bulbasaur was worried about the other Pokemon, so it decided to be the village bodyguard. Now that's what I call bravery. Suddenly, she feels something and looks down to see Bulbasaur nudging her leg. He stops to notice Mew looking down at him. Hello, Mew says. Bulbasaur, 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 Bulbasaur. How do you know what I'm saying? Can you really understand what I'm saying? Bulbasaur asks. What's Bulbasaur saying? Brock asks. He's asking if I can really understand what he was saying. Mew translate, then turns to Mew. And yes, I can. I can actually understand Pokemon. Bulbasaur? How? Bulbasaur asks, curiously. Mew answers, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. But I must say, you're very brave to protect all the Pokemon in Melanie. I'll bet anyone will be happy to have a friend like you by their side. Bulbasaur? You think so? Bulbasaur asks. I know so, Mew says. Bulbasaur, 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 Bulbasaur. Well, my former trainer might not think so. My former trainer was cruel to me and the other Pokemon. That's why I refused to listen to him, and then he got rid of me because of it. Bulbasaur explains. Mew gasps to hear Bulbasaur's story and angrily shouts. He what? I'll fight him, Misty asks. What did Bulbasaur say? He said that his former trainer is mean to him and his Pokemon, and when Bulbasaur didn't want to listen, the trainer got rid of Bulbasaur. If you ask me, that trainer doesn't even deserve Bulbasaur, Mew angrily said. Bulbasaur actually blushed a little. Soon, above the sky, a giant grey machine of some kind is flying to the village by large balloons. What's more, Team Rocket is on it, to protect the world from devastation. James, to unite all peoples within our nation. Jesse, to denounce the evils of truth and love. James, to extend our reach to the stars above. Jesse, Team Rocket, blast off at the speed of light. James, surrender now, or prepare to fight. Meowth. That's right, Jesse says. We've set our line. Time to attack the village. Then James says, those village idiots thought their measly traps would stop us. They thought they had the home team advantage. No such luck. We're the home team now. Jesse says, I congratulate myself for this brilliant scheme, James replies. Then Meowth says, don't forget, I suggested tying balloons on the stadium roof. Here we go again, Mew says, annoyed. On the stadium, Jesse says, today, only at Jesse Stadium, it's the Team Rocket Pokemon Challenge. The flying stadium was my idea, James replies. Suddenly, a giant vacuum hose comes out of the machine and points its opening to the village. With that, it begins to suck the air, hoping to suck up the Pokemon. All Pokemon are invited to enter the stadium, Jesse says. Step right up, James says. Meowth says, yeah, we're not hosing you. Well, maybe we are. Mew quickly grabs Staryu. They never run out of ideas, do they? Brock opens the door and shouts, hurry, everybody get in the cabin. Melanie hurries to get the Pokemon inside. All the Pokemon quickly follow. Oddish struggles to get to the cabin, but the wind is too strong. Misty tries to grab it. Wait, but Oddish is blown away. Misty cries out, no, Oddish! Just before Oddish gets sucked in, Bulbasaur saves it at the last minute with its Vine Whip attack. Bulbasaur, I got you, Bulbasaur calls out. Bulbasaur, Misty says happily. Mew gives Misty Staryu. Take Staryu. Mew hurries to Bulbasaur and helps push him. Keep going, Bulbasaur. Mew and Bulbasaur continue to walk through the harsh wind and they reach inside the cabin. Then Misty quickly closes and locks the door. On the balloon, Jessie angrily says, that rotten little pest. She's always ruining our flawless plans. Not this time. She's gathered them all in one place for us, James says. Our super vacuum will suck 'em up, Meowth says. The vacuum hose gets close to the cabin and the wind is about to tear the roof off of its hinges. Team Rocket cheers as they dance. Let's go, team. To steal 'em is our dream. Let's go, Rocket. Put Pokemon in our pocket. Just then, Bulbasaur jumps on the roof and uses its vine whip to lock the vacuum out of the way. Mew then throws her Pokeball and calls out, Pidgeotto, I choose you. Pidgeotto then comes out of the Pokeball. Mew calls out, Pidgeotto, Gust Attack. Pidgeotto then uses its strongest guest attack. With the winds, it creates a powerful tornado, and it's heading towards Team Rocket and the stadium. And the tornado's winding up, James says, acting like a pitcher. Jessie nervously asks, but will it strike us out? There goes the whole ball game. Meowth panics. Soon, the tornado collides with the stadium and carries Team Rocket in the air. Meowth screams, so what are we going to do now? Try and take up windsurfing. Jessie panics. Soon, the tornado is able to pick up the stadium and carries it and Team Rocket away. Meowth screams. Looks like Team Rocket's blasting off again. Soon, Team Rocket is gone, hopefully to not bother the village again. Is everyone feeling okay? Melanie asks. I just had the wind knocked out of me. Mew answers. Bulbasaur answers. Bulbasaur. I'm just fine. This village is well protected with Bulbasaur here, Mew says. Melanie then turns to Mew. Mew, don't you think that Bulbasaur would make an excellent addition to your team? I'm sure he will, Mew happily says. Then Melanie says, I think Bulbasaur should go with you. Mew becomes confused to hear it. Melanie explains, Bulbasaur stayed here to protect the weaker Pokemon, but this village is too small. The bulb on its back can't grow. It needs to go out into the world now. And I know you'll take good care of it. Please do me this favor. Take Bulbasaur with you on your journey. He'll be a good companion. But what will happen to the village without Bulbasaur? Misty asks. Yeah. Who's going to protect you? Brock adds. It's true that Bulbasaur has done a great job. Maybe too great a job. You see, these Pokemon shouldn't remain in this village forever and ever. After they recover, the Pokemon are supposed to leave, but it's too safe here, so none of them wants to go away. They don't want to return to the outside world, Melanie says. Oddish nods its head, but I think it's important that all of them return to the wild. That's where Pokemon belong, and maybe, someday, they'll find good trainers, like all of you. Of course, taking care of sick Pokemon will always be my mission, but I know that my job isn't finished until they return where they came from. So it's the day a Pokemon leaves that is the most rewarding to me, Melanie adds. Melanie, Brock sadly speaks up, but Melanie says, so, you see, it's time for Bulbasaur to leave here. Please take it with you. It won't be a burden, I promise. Bulbasaur still has a lot of growing to do. I want it to be in a place where I can be sure it can grow strong and happy. I'm sure that place is with you, Mew. Well, if you really want me to, Mew says. Bulbasaur, I will, but first she needs to battle me, Bulbasaur says. Hearing that makes Mew and Melanie chuckle. What did it say? Misty asks. Bulbasaur wants me to have a battle with him first. Right, Bulbasaur? Mew translates. Bulbasaur. That's right, Bulbasaur answers. Soon, Mew and Pikachu are standing on one side while Bulbasaur stands on the other side. Alright, Pikachu, let's go, Mew says. With that, Pikachu charges. Bulbasaur then uses its Vine Whip, but Pikachu quickly dodges. Then Bulbasaur tackles him. Pikachu, Mew shouts. Then Mew says, use Tackle too. Pikachu then tackles Bulbasaur. Suddenly, Bulbasaur tackles Pikachu again. Then it uses a Vine Whip to tie Pikachu, then slams him to the ground. That is one strong Bulbasaur, Mew says, and Bulbasaur's strongest move. Then calls out, Pikachu, Thunderbolt. Pikachu then uses his Thunderbolt. Since the Vine Whip is on Pikachu, it travels to Bulbasaur, giving it a powerful shock. It then falls to the side and faints. "Alright, Pokeball, go," Mew calls out, throwing her Pokeball. The Pokeball hits Bulbasaur and pulls him inside. After a few wiggles, it clicks and stops moving. Mew cheers. "We did it! We got Bulbasaur!" "Pie, Pikachu." "Alright," Pikachu calls out. "Eevee." "You did it," Eevee happily says. Mjolnir says with a sad smile, "Bulbasaur, I'll miss you." Soon, the heroes are preparing to leave the village. "Have a safe trip," Melanie says. "I promise to take good care of Bulbasaur," Mew says. Melanie pats Bulbasaur on the head. "Bulbasaur, thank you for watching over us." "Bulba, my pleasure, my pleasure," Bulbasaur says. Just then, Oddish walks to Misty. "Oddish, Misty." Melanie looks down and asks, "What is it?" Oddish. "I think Oddish wants to travel with you, Misty," Melanie says. "With me?" Misty asks. Oddish happily nods its head. "Oddish, yes, I want to go with you." Misty smiles. "Well, Oddish, I did say that you'll find a new trainer. I guess you chose me." "Oddish, that's right," Oddish says. Misty takes out her Pokeball. "I promise to be a great trainer to you, Oddish." Misty then taps her Pokeball on Oddish and it goes inside. With a few shakes and a click, Oddish is now part of Misty's team. Misty lets Oddish out of its Pokeball and the Pokemon jumps into Misty's arms. "I'll miss you, Oddish," Melanie says. Brock walks to Melanie. Melanie? I've been thinking." "Yes?" Melanie says, turning to Brock. "Well, since Bulbasaur is leaving, I wouldn't mind staying and helping you out," Brock replies. "It's very kind of you, but we'll be okay. I wouldn't want to keep you from all your wonderful adventures," Melanie says. "Oh, yeah, I guess you're right," Brock says. Soon, the group say their goodbyes to Melanie and the others. "Goodbye, Melanie," Mew says. "Goodbye. Good luck," Melanie says, waving goodbye. "Bulbasaur. Bye, Melanie." "Bulbasaur," Oddish says. "Oddish, Oddish. Don't worry, Bulbasaur, Oddish. You'll see your friends again. As soon as the Pokemon feel better, they'll leave this village, too," Mew says. "Bulba." "I know," Bulbasaur says. "Take good care of each other." "Goodbye," Melanie says. Brock sighs to leave Melanie. Misty walks to Brock and teases him again. "So, what did Melanie say when you said you loved her? Did you kiss her goodbye?" Brock quickly covers her mouth. "That's enough stupid questions. Would you please stop embarrassing me already?" Mew and the Pokemon simply watch as the two bicker a bit. Soon, they continue to travel to find their way to Vermilion City and hope they won't have any more trouble trying to get there.